All
Hello
right.
and welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling. I'm your host, JP John Paz. With me today, returning guest, very special guest, former WWF artist, Mr. Tom Fleming. Tom, welcome back. How you doing?
All right. It's great to be back. Thanks for having me. I'm
What's
doing
going
great.
on? What's going on in your world? I know obviously WrestleCon came and gone, but what have you been up to?
Yeah. Well, I've been doing a lot of work for Upper Deck Marvel for a lot of trading cards and stuff like that. Doing a lot of Marvel character paintings. And also I'm doing in my own projects a series of paintings for the Sandman, Neil Gaiman's Sandman. I'm doing the whole series of all the seven of the Endless characters. So that's keeping me real busy. And then in between, I'm doing more shows this year and last year than I've done in a while. So being on the road takes up some time too. And I have a project pending that I have a NDA signed for that I'm chomping at the bit. It's actually champing at the bit, and waiting to hear what that is. It's most of my projects is a pretty much a non-disclosure is just kind of like implied. Not we will not talk about this project unless you sign this. So I'm really curious to what they have for me.
Is it wrestling related?
No, it's not.
No.
It's most likely comic book related.
Okay. So
Yeah.
how so how did the experience at WrestleCon go?
So okay, so this most people that I've talked to and stuff, it's that was the first wrestling show that I've ever done. I've never done a wrestling convention before, which is kind of crazy. Um and I had the opportunity to get a booth there, and I had absolutely no idea what to expect. Because it is very different than the comic shows and the fantasy shows that I do in the regards of especially the hours. Typically, a comic show goes from 10 a.m. till 7 ish, p.m. And the rest, WrestleCon ends at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So I wasn't sure how that was going to affect sales, and what the kind of general energy and what the reception would be towards me, since I've been out of the kind of scene for quite some time now. I mean, it's been over 30 years, and I've never done a show before, but I've have shared enough online where the word is out there and stuff. So I was like, kind of like, yeah, this could be a total dud. It could be the greatest thing ever. I don't know. And actually, perfectly honestly, it fell right in between. It was there was some absolutely wonderful stuff that I'll talk about, and sales were decent. You know, um, I mean, as far what it was the first time that I ever had the original paintings for the Survivor Series, the '93 Survivor Series ads, event posters. I had them framed and on display along with the artwork for this T-shirt that I did, because I still have the original art for that. And I had the pencil drawing, and then I had the pen and ink that was actually used for the shirt, and all of that stuff was the first time it was ever displayed in public. So that was kind of exciting, and the fans were like kind of going kind of kooky over it, because it's so nostalgic. Uh, and I can't express how wonderful the reception actually was from the fan status point of view. I was sitting right next to Ric Flair, and I had people telling me that I was the highlight of their WrestleCon while sitting next to Ric Flair. So that was
Crazy,
as
yeah.
heartfelt and meaningful as you get. for the first show. I mean, I had two guys come up to me and ask me if they had their phone up, and it was my Instagram page, and they said, "Is this you?" And I said, "Yeah, that's me." And they're like, "Oh my God, we're from Egypt. We've been
Wow.
following you for years, and we had no idea you were going to be here." And it was like things like that happening throughout, throughout the 3 days. And it was, man, I mean, I really left there with a full heart of, wow, the wrestling fans are awesome. And then sales were good enough where it didn't feel like it was a dud. But I had 5 hours a day less at the wrestling shows than I do at comic shows, so it kind of is unfair to compare. So overall, it was a pretty great experience.
Were you selling that stuff, or are you just displaying it as far as the original pieces?
Oh yeah, everything's for sale. It's for the original art, because of the historic value along with the artistic value. I I'm being a little bit more firm with my prices. With my other stuff, there's a little bit more flexibility, and I mean, I'm always up for negotiation, but these are prized pieces that I have, and if the right price comes along, then I will sell them, but otherwise I'll be happy to hold on to them.
Mostly, though, good experience as far as being in wrestling or back in wrestling after all this time.
Yeah, actually, so besides the rest, I was curious about, who would be stopping by in the industry, if there would be business opportunities that came around. And there was some interesting, one of the head guys from Bare Knuckle Fighting, we had a brief conversation and might revisit possibilities of doing stuff for them. We'll see what happens there. Because they said, he said, "Are you familiar with Bare Knuckle at all?" And I said, "Well, I know Mike Perry. Knocked Luke Rockhold's teeth in." And he was like, "Oh, okay." So I was like, "Yeah, I follow. I'm a hardcore UFC fan, and I know a lot of the guys that go for that when their contracts end for UFC and stuff, they'll go over to Bare Knuckle. So I know the UFC guys over there. So." There was a couple of job opportunities that came along after the show, that I spoke to some people, gave contact information, and you never know how that's going to go. Usually it kind of fizzles out and nothing happens after the show. And every once in a while, something pops up, and a cool opportunity did pop up with possibly a beer label for a microbrewery,
Wow, awesome.
wrestling themed. Yeah,
Love it. Damn, nice.
yeah.
Were you able to connect with Adam Baum or anybody as far as some of the wrestlers you were friendly with?
So I contacted, I shot a message out to Brian Clark before the show, and I said, "Hey man, you're going to be out there." And unfortunately, he just bought a house, and he had a bunch of things personally going on. He said, "I'm not going to be able to travel and do shows till a little bit later in the year." But I told him, I said, "Man, at some point we got to do a show together." It's we stay in touch through social media, and I did that project for him a couple of years ago. So he's a great guy, and I would love to I shouldn't say meet him face to face, because we did over 30 years ago when I actually designed his costume. But it would be great now, full circle, doing a show with him, currently. But as far as other guys that I worked with, I didn't really get a chance to walk around and see that many people. But I did take some time on Sunday and went up and saw Charles Wright, Papa Shango, who it was great to see him again after we took a picture together. And, of course, with so much time passing, I had to remind him who I was. And he was like, "Oh, man." I was like, "Yeah, I still have one of your skulls and your one of your top hats in my studio." And, he's like, "Oh, man." He's like, anywhere where I can get one of those capes. And we handmade that cape, Papa Shango's cape,
Yes.
back in the day.
Yes.
And that wasn't something that we could just whip up or order. But geez, I talked to a few. I wanted to go talk to Tatanka, and I went by, and he wasn't there at the time. But I don't, talk to Ric Flair a little bit briefly, because it was awesome being on Conrad Thompson's podcast, his son-in-law. So it was great to chat with him a little bit about that. Yeah, that was about it. I didn't interact with a whole lot of talent.
When you look at the Papa Shango stuff, and you're like going back and looking at obviously Charles Wright, but that gimmick, is that more suited? Is that what you love doing more, like those crazy, off the wall kind of cartoony characters?
Yeah, I mean, when people, a very common question that people ask me is, of all the characters that you've designed, what were the favorite costumes? And there are different costumes for different reasons, but the top three are Adam Bomb, Papa Shango, and Razor. And Razor being one, Scott was very cool, very appreciative when I designed the costume, and him getting in the Hall of Fame certainly makes a difference. And I got to put, when I redesigned Kane's costume in 2002, that was a pretty big one, because that was one that I designed where the wrestler was already a superstar. It wasn't someone that I designed and then they became popular later on. That was just a super honor and a fantastic opportunity to redesign an already super successful guy.
When you look at Papa Shango, or like a guy like you're saying that it isn't necessarily established already, how do you go from like point A, like the beginning point, to the finished product? Because is it like you're drawing it and they're telling you what to draw, or is this like a concept all your own that you're creating in your mind?
So it works two different ways. There were times where my art director would give us a picture of the wrestler and say, come up with concepts, and me and one or two other designers, sometimes three other designers, will do our ideas and do layouts with pen and ink, marker, and we would mount them onto blackboard and then bring them up to Vince's office, lay them all out, and he would choose which one he likes. And he would have questions, along the way about the concepts. Then there was other times where they already had the concept. So Adam Bomb was a good example of the ones where they had no concept. They gave us a picture of Brian and said, come up with concepts. And I came up with, a medieval knight, a mercenary, a biker type of look, and also the Adam Bomb that everybody knows. So that was one, and I was super proud of the Atom Bomb because it was the first time that I was ever able to really kind of do my superhero comic book type of thing, and it came to life. So that was super fun and awesome that Vince zeroed in on that one, because the Atom Bomb costume was the first layout that I did of that series, and because it was the one that totally was in the brain, came out on paper, and then the other concepts I was kind of like just filling in because it was required that I had to come up with like four 4 other concepts. Whereas with Papa Shango, Razor Ramon, they had the concepts. They said, we want a Scarface type character for a Razor, and come up with a look. And with Papa Shango, they actually said, we want a Haitian voodoo type witch doctor. And they even told me to watch Serpent in the Rainbow. If I had time to watch Serpent in the Rainbow, the movie, to kind of get an idea of what they're looking for and as a starting point for inspiration. So that was kind of the gist of Papa. Of course, the character in that movie doesn't really look like Papa Shango, but it's the same type of flavor of, they wanted a imposing, scary type of character that was voodoo based.
I love that they can just say, hey, kind of inspiration from this movie. If you watch this movie, you'll kind of get the inspiration of what we're looking for. It's kind of a cool way to go about it and really, hone in on the character.
Yeah, that was the only one. That was the only costume where they gave me something that specific, for inspiration. And I guess it was because they wanted a kind of specific look. They knew that he, I don't know, I can't say that this was a fact, but I think that they pretty much knew that he was going to be, going up against Ultimate Warrior, and they wanted this a really dramatic type of effect. So, and Charles is one of the nicest guys of all the guys that I worked with, that I designed their costume. What a super friendly person. And then seeing him 30 years later or more, absolutely, nothing changed. He was still super personable.
Crazy to think about it. He's the Godfather, but he was also Papa Shango and Kama. The different gimmicks is so funny, but obviously the Godfather is more like him in real life.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of his walk around. But I did hear on Saturday at WrestleCon, he was wearing the Papa Shango gear. And I kind of wanted to get up there, but Saturday was a really busy day and I couldn't get up there because I would have loved to take a picture with him with the Papa stuff on.
Yeah,
that would have been awesome.
I love that he still does the gimmick. But with Adam Bomb, that's even better because that's like your baby. You're creating it from scratch and you're saying, hey, what about this idea? I mean, that's even cooler because then you can just kind of he can almost be who you envision him to be.
So yes. And the Atom Bomb costume was, because when I did those layouts, and the layouts are, a lot of those layouts, I know the WWE has them on their website. Some of them, I've shared them on social media. So a lot of people have seen the costume concept layouts that I'm referring to. The Atom Bomb layout is probably it is the one that I drew that translated from paper to real life almost exact. Where, I mean, when Brian came out, he looked like a comic book character.
Yeah.
It was crazy. So, a lot of times we do these drawings, we don't know what the wrestler looks like, and they're not quite in the shape that we draw them in. And the costumes are, kind of designed around someone completely jacked, and, and then, they come with a little bit more of a spare tire or something. It's like, oh man, okay, it doesn't quite look like it did on paper. Brian, the Atom Bomb costume was right on the money. I mean, it was awesome. As a matter of fact, I used to have a portfolio with the drawing that I did of the costume layout, and then on the other page, a photo almost in the exact position. And it's amazing how close they are.
He really is. Like the body type's like a Greek god. He looks like he could be a superhero. It's a huge dude. So it's actually perfect to do like that concept art for him. Be like, yeah, this guy can pull this one off.
Yeah, big time. I think that's one of the reasons why Mr. Perfect got so upset when I designed the costume with the singlet cut, same singlet cut as his.
Really? He was not happy with that.
Oh, he was not. A matter of fact, I don't know. I've shared this story a few times, but when I designed the Atom Bomb costume, I was at Atom Bomb's debut at the TV taping, and I was backstage just kind of finalizing because I had to hand make his gloves and his hand paint his goggles and do quite a few things for the actual costume, not just on paper, but actually build them. Much like I did with Papa Shango, me and my buddy Jay Jarsdorfer, we made the necklace and all that stuff. So I'm backstage and I'm working, getting Atom Bomb ready for his debut and stuff. And I'm just standing there alone. And Kurt comes storming up to me. And he said, are you the guy that designed the bomb costume? And I was just like, yeah. And he got in my face and he was screaming at me. Who do you think you are designing his costume, with the same singlet cut as mine? And I thought he was going to hit me. He was so upset. I was like, oh my God, I think Mr. Perfect's gonna hit me. And he was in my face screaming and my heart was pounding. And nervously I started laughing and it got him even more pissed. And and I kind of thought to myself at the time, and I was a bigger guy then than I am now. And I was like, oh man, if he hits me, I think we're gonna throw down. And it was like a crazy concept to think that I was going to actually, where some of the other guys, they were literally like towering, and there was no chance. But I was like, oh my God. And I just said, listen, Kurt, I was like, man, if you got a problem with any of the costume stuff, Vince approves everything. You go to Vince and you complain to him. He approves everything. I had nothing to do with that. So he stormed over to Vince and I looked over and I saw Vince kind of start laughing and he got pissed off and like punched the wall or locker or something and stormed off. And I don't know if it was just a bad day. It was the only interaction I've ever had with him. So I don't want to judge him as a person for that, but man, it was kind of crazy how upset he was.
Why though about that costume and that singlet? It has nothing to do with his character whatsoever.
Well, my guess was that he was getting older. It was a little bit later in his career. Here comes this young buck, jacked, freaking wearing, the same set, and kind of maybe he felt like it was stealing his thunder or something. And that's just pure speculation, but it's the only thing that I could. When he said my singlet cut, I was like, okay, there's something really personal and insecure going on here. So that's my only guess. I don't, I never got an actual answer of why he was so upset. I was just happy that I could just go about my job and finish up the costume.
Right. It doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense because a bomb and Perfect is a completely different character and completely different look.
Agreed. I know there was one time where we designed a costume with pink in it, and Bret, who I have nothing bad to say about, Bret Hart was absolutely a wonderful guy. He got upset though that we used pink in one of the costumes because that was his color. So these guys have their identifiable elements of their costumes and stuff, and I guess they really hold on to that and want to keep that as theirs.
I guess in a certain aspect, it makes sense because they don't want anything to be like them. That's who their characters. They want to stand out. Sometimes it can be a little wacky, like Mr. Perfect. Like the Steiner brothers wore the same singlets too. Like, does it matter? It's one of those
Agreed.
crazy things. Yeah.
Agreed. It was like it's a standard wrestling singlet. Yep. So I don't know. Maybe he was just having a really bad day that day and just needed to vent. I don't know what it was, but it was a surreal moment for me. but
Yeah.
it also makes for a fun story too. So, um, nothing terrible happened.
Did Vince ever say anything to you like, "What the hell was that?"
No,
Oh,
no,
no,
Vince
never.
just, at those TV tapings, so much is going on and stuff that, it probably literally just, you know, he
Yep.
probably had a million things to do. And the only time I ever really interacted with Vince was when with the costume designs, going up to his office, and him uh, picking out which costume design he preferred.
With your buddy Jay, you mentioned him.
Yep.
Is that something you guys would do a lot where you'd work on the costumes like together and you'd kind of develop and like even Adam Bomb, like you're literally putting everything together for him?
Yeah. So Adam Bomb was 100 was all me, but Papa Shango was definitely I designed the face paint and the whole singlet. And our boss Adriana, she would design like the rain stick and the cape. Definitely designed the cape. Jay handmade. He collected bones like roadkill, and
Whoa.
yes. So when we got the Papa Shango assignment, he was like, "Dude," he goes, you have no idea." He brought in a bag full of chicken, fox, deer, squirrel, like all kinds of bones. And he used to like collect roadkill, bury them, let nature take its course, and then bleach the bones and save them. So yeah, there was a real chicken
Wow.
skull on Papa Shango's top hat. That was authentic. None of that was actual fake.
Wow, that's going above and beyond for the character. Wow, crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So and we worked so well together. And while we're talking about Jay on every podcast, I really like to mention that so Jay, me and him, he was about 12 years older than me. I was in my mid 20s. He was about 40 or so. Um and he we just hit it off. The age didn't matter. We were definitely like kindred spirits, and we just had the best time laughing. We became lifelong friends. He left and went to Doubleday Books and became an art director there after he left the WWF. We stayed in touch, and we used to have phone calls and just laugh about the days at the WWF and talk about like all the stuff that we did and like joke about possibly making it, getting nominated or inducted into the Hall of Fame, and we would laugh about it like it was not even a possibility. And we were like, man, we're the last two people to ever that are likely to be seen in a tuxedo. That how awesome would that be? Going up there and getting inducted in that and whatever. We would joke about it. And a few years later, he called me to say goodbye because he was diagnosed with leukemia, and it was probably it was the toughest phone call of my life. And it was one of those things after he passed and COVID came around years later. Um, I started sharing all of my WWF artwork online, and it opened up a can of worms that was incredible. I had no idea. It was 30 years later, and the reception that I got from the fans was, "Oh my God, you're the guy who did this. This is my childhood. Had no idea. Now we have a name and a face to put to this artwork." It was like wild. And I had no idea the impact that we made during the golden age of wrestling with the characters. And I just didn't know. I just didn't know because I just went and started working for Marvel and DC and the gaming industry and stuff like that. And I didn't revisit the wrestling world until the pandemic. And then with what the fans were saying, I was like, my God, there is actually legitimacy to this, that we did do things that could be considered Hall of Fame you know, nomination at least. And so what I'm trying to do is my dream is to get Jay, at least Jay. I would love for both of us, but I would love to get Jay into the Hall of Fame for the costumes and the work that he did in the art department, and do that for Gina, his wife, and his family.
Amazing. It would be amazing. And it's crazy to think like, okay, you don't think anything about the business for a while, like, whatever, COVID happens, you unearth this stuff, and then everyone comes out of the woodwork and like, oh my God, that's amazing. I remember this character. I remember that. I remember that poster. It like the wrestling fans, man, they don't forget anything.
No, they don't. And the thing that was most shocking was that there was costumes that I designed that I was actually ashamed of and embarrassed about, and I never mentioned or even took credit for some of them. And then this much time later, I was just like, you know what, screw it. I'm gonna, like the way I live my life now is just everything is just out there. I have no secrets. It's all the truth. That's all I live for is the truth. And I just was like, you know what? Giant Gonzalez is a good example.
Yeah.
That and people, I was just like, yeah, I was like, this is one that I really had trouble, taking credit for. But yep, I was like, I was responsible for the costume design, not taking credit for the airbrush muscles on it. But anyway, the response that I frequently got was like, what are you talking about? I was like 7, 8 years old, and that was like larger than life. When you're a 7-year-old, you're not judging on the quality of a costume. You're seeing it as this like bigger than life character. And I was like, oh my God, see, that's through the eyes of an adult. Misjudging myself. I had no idea that some of these costumes were actually beloved. So, Bastion Booger, Max Moon, that there was a bunch of like more obscure characters that were super fun, but I had, they didn't ever make it to the level of the Razor Ramones and Canes and Tatankas and those guys, Atom Bombs.
There were so many cool guys in that period, though, especially if you look at it as like artwork or as action figures. Like Giant Gonzalez is cool, Papa Shango is cool. Like all those guys are cool, but artwork, Max Moon is really cool. Bastion Booger is so interesting because it's such like an odd character, but it's such a cool piece of artwork. And for him to play that character, it's like, wow, this guy is wacky.
Yeah, I mean the Bastion Booger. I don't know if you're familiar with that costume layout, but a lot of people saw that, when they were flipping through my portfolio at WrestleCon, that concept was originally he was supposed to be a gargoyle.
Wow.
And
okay.
Yeah, they were gonna have a latex mask made up, and he was gonna wear that and look like, and have that. They wanted me to accentuate how disgusting his body was, because he was pretty grotesque, with hairy and completely overweight, whatever. And they wanted me to exaggerate that, so that's why that kind of weird star-shaped open strap kind of thing going through the middle of his chest. They wanted this like kind of like beast like creature that like maybe just dropped off of a cathedral or something. And what happened through time constraints, by the time he was supposed to debut, there was not enough time to produce the mask. So they wound up going with the Bastion Booger concept instead of the gargoyle.
Interesting too. And then Friar Ferguson before that was him, but it didn't really work out. So yeah, they were thinking outside the box with that character and Mike Shaw, but obviously none of it kind of maybe ended up where it should have ended up.
Yeah, and the thing is, when Bastion Booger came out, I was so entertained by when he would pin his opponent, sit on their face, blow his nose, and put the handkerchief over their head. I thought that was the funniest freaking thing. So it didn't have any legs and it didn't last long, but I thought it was super fun.
Yeah, he would do some gross stuff that as a fan you just could not root for the guy. Just a total bad guy. But
Yeah,
obviously short run, but one of those things where it's like this guy is you just know looking at him like you can't like this guy. He's a villain.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And
So
there's some
talk
guys that just they tried as they tried as heroes and they just make better villains. One of the biggest examples of when I was there, when Hulk Hogan left, they were like in desperate search of the next Hulk Hogan.
Yep.
And I painted the background to the poster for Sid Justice, where he's standing there, and there's like this kind of Greek columns behind him, and it says Sid Justice. I painted the background of that poster, and they really gave Sid a try at being a baby face instead of a heel, and he just wasn't a baby face. He was a heel through and through, and the Hulk Hogan had such charisma, and he kind of had that teddy bear kind of quality of, kids loved him, and it was a really tough quality to find. So they searched and they gave Lex a shot at it, and Lex didn't quite. He was big, but he just wasn't. It was something that just had to happen naturally, and I watched them struggling for years until it happened with Stone Cold. When that was a phenomenon that I don't think anybody could quite predict.
Yeah, it's amazing to think like who has the it factor, who are the big stars. I mean, and Luger and Sid are big stars in their own right, but compared to Hogan and Steve Austin, it's a big drop off. Those are like the tippy top. Those are the Mount Rushmore guys we're talking about with Hogan and Austin.
Yeah, and then of course the biggest of the Rock came around
Yeah.
after that, and it's the combination of having that being imposing along with being charismatic, being lovable to both women and men, having the personality. It's not an easy combination to find.
And you did Mr. America, right?
Yeah. So in 2002, after a few years of not doing any work with the WWE, they called me back and asked me if I wanted to do some more costume design work, and I was like, "Wow, sure, yeah. What do you got?" And it was actually kind of crazy. Kane, of course, which I already mentioned, Mr. America, and the Team Angle costumes. Which, man, Kurt Angle, Hulk Hogan, Kane, three, monsters
Yep.
of the industry, and I got the opportunity to design the costume, so that was super cool.
Very interesting with Mr. America because what do they say to you? Like, it's Hogan. We know it's Hogan, but let's pretend it's not Hogan. Like, how do they explain that one?
Um, of course, the whole thing of trying to really hide that he was Hulk Hogan was so silly, that it was
Yeah.
so over the top. They really just said, listen, Hulk Hogan's coming out as this character. He's going to be a Captain America based kind of feel. And they just wanted me to come up with different looks for the mask, and the costume was so basic. It was just the trunks and the pants. And I thought, the mask designs that I came up with, I did one specific one that I was hoping they would go with, and they didn't. They went with one because I think they got a little scared of getting too close to Captain America. And yeah, I thought that the mask could have been executed a little bit better to look more like Captain America. They did that kind of weird pointy nose thing
Yep.
for some reason, and I think maybe they just misunderstood my drawing, because the drawing did have kind of like a kind of feel to that, but it was more of like just going down like you draw Captain America in the comic books, and it wasn't supposed to be like a kind of beak like look. So, but it is what it is. It was super fun. Everybody got a kick out of the gimmick, and people still are like, "Wait, are you kidding me? That was Hulk Hogan?" So it was one of the silliest gimmicks of all time, pretty much.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that's kind of like the last thing you ever did for WWE?
Yep. 2002, I believe the Kane costume was the last thing that I ever did. Yep.
Wow. Like when they tell you, do they tell you like, hey, this is going to be the last thing? Or does it always seem like it's going to be the next project's going to come?
No, what was happening was at that point, I worked like from 91 through 93, 94, somewhere around there. I worked in-house, commuted in from Long Island to Stamford, Connecticut, uh, worked in a cubicle, and just worked 9 to 5, in the office. Then, excuse me, from like 94 through 98-ish, I worked freelance from my studio and still did work. And then from like 98 to through 2002, I didn't work at all for them, and I moved from New York to North Carolina. So I was completely disconnected for about 4 years. And what happened in that time was almost everybody that I worked with left the company and moved on to other jobs and things like that, except for my creative director, Debbie Sergalis, who's now Debbie Bonanzio. She was still there. So she was the one who reached out, and then shortly after that, I don't remember exactly how long, but I think shortly after that, she left the company, and I had no ties to the company anymore.
When you look at when you look at your run in totality and you just look at all that stuff, it's like, wow, there are so many guys that you worked on, right? I mean, so many wrestlers that you kind of were a part of their career and their journey and their way through, and kind of were a big part of the identifier of really people picking up on who these guys are.
Yeah. And that's the other, that's the same thing is like, I had no idea that there was costumes that I designed that I even forgot that I even designed. At WrestleCon, Nails, his daughter, came up to me and asked if I had any nail, and I was like, oh my God. So that obviously that costume, there wasn't a whole lot of design work involved because he was basically an inmate with the orange jumpsuit. But I was one of the guys that were doing the drawings to just present to Vince, just so he could have a visual. There was I don't even know if they ever did this or not, but in the drawing, we originally had a chain around his neck with a broken file to file the bar. We thought that might be kind of cool hanging from his neck. But anyway, I totally forgot that I even was involved with Nails' costume. There was another tag team. Oh God, what was their names? They were what's the male strippers? Big famous male stripper.
Chippendales.
The Chippendales guys, yeah. They were like Chippendales theme. And I forget, but we had these I designed these cummerbunds shaped as lips, and it was like, oh my God, it really silly, and I don't think they lasted long. A matter of fact, they went on to become another tag team. And I just don't remember. I don't remember the name, but they were out there for a while. And the fans would, come up and ask me, "Do you have anything to do with this and that?" And a lot of times it was either Jay or Adriano or somebody else that designed them. And then every once in a while they'll bring up something. I'll be like, "Oh my God, I did do some work on that. Yeah, the big ones that were actually meaningful to me and stuff are the ones that people know that I did.
Yeah, there's so many cool ones. Like you mentioned Crush or 123 Kid, like those ones are awesome. Razor Ramon, I mean, there's so many cool ones that you did that really stand out, especially in that era. Was like such a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, the Crush one was a good one too. And the Crush one was the first costume that I designed that I also designed the logo. So I designed the Crush logo, I designed the Razor Ramon logo, and there might have been like one or two other logos that I designed, but usually the logos were designed by there was actually logo designers that worked in the office, and we would do the costumes and they would do the logos. But every once in a while, if the logo that I drew on the costume worked as their general logo, then they would ask me to do it. And Razor was like literally almost straight off of his trunks that I drew, and Crush was right off his his tank top.
Very cool. And with Razor, he initially, I remember his like first outfit, he had pants. Was that the initial like drawing for him that he was going to actually wear pants instead of tights?
So yeah, because we didn't know Scott at the time, we did these layouts. Jay did some layouts. I did some layouts, and he had spandex pants, and we brought them up. Vince approved, and then I saw Scott saw me in the gym that night. The WWE they had an awesome gym in the office, and I would go get a workout in while try to miss rush hour and then head home. And Scott happened to be there that day, and he came over and he was like, brother, he's like, listen, man, he goes, I know you designed that costume, I love it. He goes, the only thing, I've been working way too hard on my legs. We got to turn those pants into trunks. And I was like, all right, man, I'll tell you what, we'll take the razor blades off the pants, put them on knee pads, turn them into trunks. And that's an easy fix. So his debut was actually with the pants, with Jay's design for the pants. And then they went with my design for what everybody knows as Razor Ramon, with the trunks and the logo and the vest and all that stuff.
Yeah, it just seems so much more fitting and better with the tights rather than the pants for Hall. He just looks so much better with that look.
With the trunks than the tights,
Yes.
yeah.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, obviously made the right decision, right choice, because he's one of the biggest.
Oh, absolutely. And if you watch some of his WCW stuff, it's funny. He must have loved that Razor Ramon elbow pad. Whenever the other elbow pad came off, you could see he was wearing the Razor Ramon elbow pad underneath. So he always kept the Razor Ramon gear, which is awesome.
Yeah. And it was also at WrestleCon. It was really cool because there's Razor Ramon merchandise, sweatshirts, and all stuff out there.
Yep.
And it was just really cool to see people walking around with Razor Ramon stuff with my logo that I designed when I was like 26 years old. It was like,
Yep.
man, I was like, just really, really cool full circle moment.
And your stuff is still alive as ever, obviously. You know what I mean? Like you get to see it all these years later in still licensing and marketing. And I mean, it's out there.
It's so yeah. Last year, I think it was last year. I'm walking through. If I go to Walmart, I'll always kind of walk through the toy section just for the heck of it to check out the WWE action figures and stuff. Just to see if there was any new releases that I had a hand in, and boom, new brand, like last year or the year before, brand new Papa Shango figure comes out, and I'm like, unbelievable. This 3 decades later, and they're still releasing Papa Shango figures.
Amazing. The
Yeah,
nostalgia is great. People love the nostalgia. They love the old school stuff.
yeah. And I learned, I didn't even know that, at WrestleCon when I walked up, upstairs to go say hello to Charles. I'm walking around and I seen a guy selling action figures there, and I looked and I was like, "Oh my God!" There was a Bret Hart King of the Ring action figure, and he was holding. I handmade the first staff to the first King of the Ring pay-per-view, and
Wow.
um, and I was like, oh my God, there's my staff with the action figure. I was like, man, I got to find one of these and pick it up, um, and had no idea that that even existed.
So cool what they make. So random too, because you're like thinking of stuff like, what else could they make? And they're like, they never run out of ideas. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I was at the Baltimore Comic Con walking through, and one of the vendors had a Mr. America action figure that I didn't even know existed. So yeah, it's like and this was last year. So even to this day, I'm still finding new action figures and stuff that I had a hand in that I didn't even know existed. Walking through Walgreens and seeing the Kane costume that I designed as a Funko Pop figure. It's
Awesome.
just awesome.
And I notice sometimes, I don't know if it's old posters or not, but it seems like on Fanatics, which is that now connected with WWE and their site, seems like they put up old posters and stuff on there sometimes. So I don't know if Survivor Series, which is one of the greatest and most iconic posters from '93, is up there, but I wouldn't be surprised if that became like a seller for them again.
Yeah, see and I'm not sure about this, but the Survivor Series, as far as I know, I never saw um an actual an event poster. So the Survivor Series paintings that I did, as far as I know, they ran as the magazine ads in the WWE WWF magazine, where you turn, the pages on Tatanka and
Yep.
the All Americans, with the Yokozuna turkey. Then you turn the page, and it's all the foreign fanatics with the
Yes.
Lex turkey.
Yep.
And I know that ran as, like, they used that for ads. It was in TV Guide. It was in
Yep.
the magazine. It was on T-shirts. It was like used all over. But I don't ever remember seeing an event poster. Whereas the '94 Royal Rumble that I did, there was actually event posters like that I had. They gave me a handful of them, and I actually had an actual poster that was used for the event.
Awesome.
So I don't know. I don't know I don't know which pieces I did that were actually used for what purposes, but except for the ones that I grabbed. I would always grab samples when I was there,
Right.
and I clearly didn't know the extent of what they used them for.
I remember when I would see that in TV Guide, especially Survivor Series '93, I cut it out, I recorded it on the TV, and I put the tape and I put that over my, where it says Maxell, VHS, whatever. I put that over it, and that was the cover that I made of my tape. It's like, man, such awesome artwork to be able to do that for.
Oh, that's really cool, actually. Yeah. Those old Coliseum videos too that they were set,
Yep.
when they came out, that was a really cool thing. When I did the Survivor Series, and then Tatanka got hurt, and they had me paint the Undertaker in the exact same pose.
Yep.
And Tatanka was in the magazine ad, and then the Undertaker was actually in the same painting on the VHS cassette.
Yes. Yes. So cool. Um, as we hit the wind down here, we head towards the finish. What is next for you, just as far as artwork? I know we talked about it a little bit, but what are you planning on doing next? And are you planning on doing more of let's say wrestling conventions with some of the artwork?
So yeah, I am. I don't know how many, but right now I am booked for WrestleCade in Winston-Salem in November. And I am thinking about possibly, if there's still, if I'll see if there's space available, I may do the show that is in Charlotte, North Carolina.
The Gathering.
Yes, the Gathering. Yep, exactly. I may give that a try also. I did do a pretty big project a couple of years ago when NFTs were really popular. I did 23 wrestling NFTs that were licensed with the actual wrestlers or their estates if they weren't alive anymore. And I actually did Andre the Giant's official NFT. I did Macho Man's, Rob Van Dam, Kurt Angle. There was a bunch of real big names. And unfortunately, by the time I finished it and they started ready to, do the marketing and stuff, cryptocurrency completely, the bottom fell out of it, died. And they are using the artwork for a video game. And, fingers crossed the video game does really well and stuff, and the artwork isn't just lost out there forever. But we'll see. And then, we'll see what opportunities arise from WrestleCon because, I always put it out there. If anybody at the WWE, wants to bring me back, I would definitely welcome doing new projects for, getting back into the wrestling world.
Where can anybody find your art as far as if they want to buy some posters?
If they want to buy posters, I have, my website is one of the main ways, which is, TomFlemingArtwork.com. And then I also have the best way to contact me is probably through social media. Contacting me through the website is easy enough. But Facebook, The Art of Tom Fleming, and Instagram is Tom Fleming Art. That's most likely where I do all my announcing of new projects and appearances and things like that on my Facebook page and Instagram page. But eBay, Etsy, the links are right on my website, and I have a whole line of all the costume designs and the merchandise art, event posters, and everything available there.
All right. Awesome. Tom, thank you so much for all the time. Really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me back. I love talking about this stuff, and especially with the how welcoming and how evident it is, how appreciated it is. I got pretty much endless stories to tell. So I could keep coming back if you'll have me.
Yes, absolutely. Will do for sure. Tom, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night.